It's no secret Democrats are in the middle of an identity crisis. Even top lawmakers admit that there does need to be a change. But the president may be making it a little bit tougher for them. Imagine what Christmas is going to be like for the families of those who were murdered by one of the 37 inmates whose death sentences were commuted by the president today. Take the Roberts family. 12-year-old Lexis K. Roberts was held captive by Thomas Sanders. He had just killed her mother, and Lexis was shot 4 times, and she was left in the woods for the police to find. Thomas is one of the inmates who Biden took off death row. There's also the Donovan family. Alice Donovan was headed to Walmart to do some Christmas shopping for her daughters, but she never made it. 2 men kidnapped her in the parking lot. Her remains were not found for 7 years. So both killers will now live out their days behind bars when she couldn't make it home from a shopping run. So many families without loved ones, yet those convicted of heinous crimes have access to food, shelter, water, in some cases education, other amenities. Americans are already frustrated with President Biden and the Democratic Party. A new focus group from Navigator Research described the Democratic Party as an ostrich because, quote, they've got their heads in the sand and are absolutely committed to their own ideas, even when they're failing. Another likened the party to koalas who, quote, are complacent and lazy about getting policy wins that we really need. Someone else said that Democrats are just not a friend of the working class anymore. Is that true? With us now is Brett Manley, top advisor to Republican members for well over 15 years, and Lisa Durin, Democratic political analyst. Lisa, I do want to start with you. The optics, I mean, it's up for interpretation. There are a number of men who are still on death row. I have a list here. We've got Dylan Roof. We have the Boston Marathon bomber, Robert Bowers. Do you think this was a good move, a sensitive move toward Christmas, or do you think the optics aren't great for the Democratic Party?
Well, it's always good to do a good thing. Let me just start by saying this. All of you MAGA minions and you megalomaniacs and MAGA monsters are the so-called evangelicals who believe in God. And God says, forgive. Now, I understand lots of people are victims of all kinds of heinous crimes, and I can't stand it. But people who are evangelicals, people who are Christians, people who claim they believe in God should not feel like a person has the right to kill someone, even if they were also victims or their families were. So do I agree with Joe Biden commuting 37 death row inmates to keep them in jail for life? I absolutely do. One of the other reasons why I agree with it is because I'm a Black person, and I know the death penalty harms more Black people than anyone else. So I can't feel good when real heinous killers have a death penalty, and then maybe a Black person gets a death penalty who's innocent. Either you believe in the death penalty or you don't, and I don't. But he did not let them out of prison. He said, you will not go to the death penalty, and I'm going to spare your life, and you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail. Now, the criminal in chief, Donald Trump, would not want to do that when he got in office. So I'm glad that Joe Biden commuted those sentences before Donald Trump got in office, because that would be a disaster.
All right, Brett, I want you to respond. I want you to respond to Lisa. And then I have a question that I want to add, not only your response, but is this a move by President Biden, or is this a move by the Democratic machine? Who's making this decision, the Democratic machine or President Biden?
Yeah, well, I mean, first I'd like to clarify, the faith community actually does support the clemencies, I think, in this situation, but they're taking it from a moral standpoint. And if your moral position is that you don't support the death penalty, that's certainly a case you can make. But then why leave those other men on death row? If those crimes that those men are committed are so heinous that they deserve to die, why is it that the men whose sentences were commuted don't deserve to die? Why is it that the Boston Marathon bomber deserves to die, but someone who raped and murdered a 7- and 8-year-old girl deserves to be put on clemency? You can't have it both ways. If you want to make the moral case, right, that the death penalty is bad, then make the moral case and commute all the sentences. But what Biden's done here is really put the Democratic Party in a position where they have to both defend why those men need to die, but also at the same time defend why another group of people who have committed absolutely heinous crimes should not die. And that's a very difficult position for them to be in. And I think as you look going forward, a lot of the problems that the Democratic Party had campaigning about trying to have it both ways, right? Tax the rich, but we're going to forgive their student loans, things like that. You have to be consistent, and this is not consistent. So if you want to make the moral case, I personally don't think that you should give these men clemency. They committed heinous crimes. The voters in many of these states have had opportunities to repeal the death penalty, and they have not done so. California being one of those states, very liberal state, routinely votes against repealing the death penalty. But this is clearly something that the president has the power to do. I don't necessarily think it's wise, right? Because he doesn't get credit for clemency from the groups that advocate for it, since he's clearly left men on death